Okay, now that those errors are sorted, you'll actually find that there are still two console errors that actually are taking place. The very first one is your open bracket. Well, it's expecting a bracket, but it's found an equals, and the other one is an unexpected token E. Usually when you receive multiple errors, it's usually one thing that causes it. So the very first thing, let's have a look at line 38, because that's where they're both being caused at the moment. So in our script, we actually can go through down to line 38, and we know that the problem is here somewhere. And instantly I can actually tell that my error is actually because it said that it was expecting a bracket but found this. And the reason for it is occasionally you can get your if statements just to be something along those lines, if input.getKey. The problem is when I'm actually checking something, and I'm checking that it is equal to E. So the difference with your equals is when you have a single equal sign, you're actually setting it. So you're actually saying that a variable is equal to that value. When you've got double equals, it's checking it. So it's actually saying that that variable is equal to that value. Now in this case, we're actually using input.getKey, not a variable per se, but it is the case where we're checking for that. I'm just going to save my script with Control S, go back to Unity, and my errors are cleared. Now from here, what we can actually do is we can actually test our code, debug E was pressed. So let's go back to Unity, hit play. So I can look around, and if I'm hitting E now, which you might be able to hear, nothing's happening. However, if I look at the door, it comes up, it says press E to enter the cave, and I hit E, nothing's happening. Now why could that be happening? Why could that? So let's have a quick look at our code and see what's happening. So if the collider is getting hit, it's interacting with the text, press E to enter the cave, which is what we're getting, and then we're checking for this key here. So the very first thing we're going to do is let's actually, by pressing Control and apostrophe, load up our scripting reference, go to input, and we're looking at get key. And you'll actually see that here's an example of what we have, input.getKey, and you can see that I've actually made a bit of a mistake in regards to, you can actually see that it says input.getKey. There is no equals symbols, is there? Mistakes happen in code, and you have to use their scripting references or their manuals to actually help you figure it out. So let's quickly change that to modify for that to take place. So go back to our scripting reference, and you'll see that that's in brackets. That might work better for us. Save our script and hit play. So again, I'm walking around. As soon as I look at the cave, I hit E, and I get that E was pressed button. If I'm looking away, no more messages. But as soon as I look at the cave, start spamming them. Okay, that's showing me that my message is working, but I don't want it just to appear in my console debug window. I want it to load the next level. So to load the next level, I need to do two things. The very first one is, rather than actually having this debug.log, I need a command saying application.loadLevel. And if you remember what application.loadLevel is, if we load that one up, our scripting reference, we need application.loadLevel, and you can see that it comes up with application.loadLevel and then the name of our scene. So there's a couple of things we need to do to prepare for it. So in my scenes, I have a cave scene and a horror scene. The horror scene is actually just my terrain. So this is my horror scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, Build Settings, and you'll see that I've got my cave scene already in my build, but I don't want to start in the cave. So the very first scene that I have there is what will load initially. So I'm just going to select that, or any others that you might have, and hit delete. That will move it from this scenes in build. I'm now going to go through with my horror scene added to go add. So that means horror scene has the index of 0. Now I'm not going to build it just yet. I'm going to save and save my scene, and then I'm going to open up my cave scene. and save any changes. Now once my cave scene is open, which it has, just having trouble finding it, there's my cave system. I'm going to go through and do the same thing, File, Build Settings, and add this one as well. And you can see that this one is called Cave Scene with capital C and a capital S. So I'm going to jump back to Unity and type in that name of Cave Scene. So what happens is when I'm looking at the something tagged entrance, it comes up with text of what I can do, and then it looks for the interactive key, in this case E. The debug.log error or message is for the developer, not for the person. But what will happen is when they press that letter E, it will load the cave as if they're entering the cave system. So I'm going to close this one down, save my changes, load my horror scene, and what you'll see, let's actually just play test that one, see how it goes. Pressing E, I'm not teleporting to the cave. As soon as I say press E to enter the cave and I hit E, I enter my cave system and then I can continue from here. So that is how you actually set up your cave system. Now, usually you can put in loading screens rather than it freezing. We're not actually going to go through that at all. And you can also see that I haven't really added my cave to be scary yet. I haven't turned down the dark or increased the darkness. I've got a lot of light in this map, which is fine as well. So you can see that that is my cave system that I'm walking around in. So from there we've actually got our person looking at our door, going through it and doing that. One of the main issues that you might have is if you've actually set it up with a couple of pieces of individual wood, I'm actually looking at this entire piece of wood. So the main trouble that most people will have is when they're setting up that door for the tag. You need to make sure that you actually group them together, and you can actually see that all my pieces are grouped together. So they have one box collider. If you need to do this separately, what you can actually do is I'm actually just going to use, let's actually do this, Underworld. I'm just going to quickly drag out a whole heap of pieces of wood and let's pretend it's my door. So just quickly, if I looked at each one, when I was looking in between each gap, what will end up happening is it won't actually recognize that it's a door. So I need to create this, an empty game object. And I'm just going to bring that one fairly close to it. I'm going to add a box collider. Just make sure I put it in the right spot in 3D space. And the size down here is what I'm going to change. So I'm actually going to go through and increase that one. Let's increase the Y a bit. So it's the height of my door. And then my Z. Like that. Now what does that actually do? That's got my game object, it holds it. When I'm looking at this, even through the gaps, I'm actually looking at this green boxed collider, which will help me. The only problem is I need to make it a little bit more simpler. So I'm going to call it door. And then each one of these items, I'm going to select and then drag and drop in to door. So that means wherever I move this now, those pieces go with it. So it will be that complete package. That's one of the main problems you will have, especially if you have to be looking at the piece of wood and not in the gap. I'm just going to delete that off. From here, keep on going through. Once you've got your cave system working, your challenge is to actually go through and to create, let's actually just say a mushroom. You need to create a tag for this. Let's call it collectible. Once you've got that collectible tag, you need to use a similar code like this. So you can actually go through and copy. So if it hits, an object, rather than entrance, you would have collectible. And rather than press E to enter the cave, you would want it to say press E to pick up the item. And instead of application.load level into casing, you could actually use a destroy game object so it looks like you're collecting it. Be creative here. The next video will show you how to do it, but this is where I really want you to stop watching the videos and really try something for yourself and see how you go. Good luck.